Hello and welcome to 1.1a, our first venture into Chapter 1. In this first video we'll be looking at the number line, the negative sign, and variables. Okay, let's get started. I have a feeling that most of this will be old news to you. There's a number line with the number 0 in the middle. So what kind of numbers do we generally find to the right of 0 over here? All of these numbers are positive. And, I can hear you saying, yeah, negative over on the left. Here are the negative numbers. One thing I'll point out too is whether you're in the negatives or the positive neighborhood, as you go from left to right, the numbers get bigger. So if a number's down here and another number is here, just by looking on the number line, you know this guy is bigger than this guy. Okay, and likewise, as we go from right to left, no matter where you are, the numbers get smaller. So if you want to compare two numbers, this guy, and let's say this is a -2 and this is a -5, which one's bigger? Yeah, the -2 is bigger, the -5 is smaller. Okay, so left to right, numbers get, yep, they get bigger. And not surprising, when you go from right to left, the numbers get smaller. Okay, let's see what we can do with this. Okay, first to look at is this little sign here, little horizontal line, can mean one of three things. It can mean subtraction, and you already know that. So for example, 10 minus 7. There's that little horizontal line. The other two uses or meanings of that little horizontal line can mean negative or opposite of. And these are generally basically saying the same thing, and sometimes it's more convenient, it makes more sense to think of it as negative, and in other times it makes more sense to think of it as opposite. So if we write any negative number, okay, let's make that a -3. Okay. We can also say that that same symbol, that horizontal line in front of the 3, means the opposite of 3. So let's take a look at what that might mean on the number line. So here's 3, okay, and if we wanted to look at a -3, where would we find that? Yeah, we would find that down here. So that's a -3, and it also means the opposite of 3. So when you put that negative in front of a number, it flips things on the number line around 0. So the opposite of a +3 is a -3. Likewise, what about this? What's the opposite of a -3? So we start down here, and that opposite just flips things around. Let me create a little space here. That negative sign just flips things around on the number line around 0. So the opposite of -3, there's where we start. The opposite of that, flip it back over here, and we end up where? At a positive. So how we could write this is the opposite of a -3 is a +3. And we could flip back with all the negative signs we want. But just keep in mind that that negative sign, that little horizontal line there, can be both meaning negative, and that just really means the same thing as opposite. Okay, just ignore that telephone call. One final thing, we will take a look at what a variable is. You go, oh, I know what a variable is. It's a letter. Want to point out that the variable can represent two different things. One is, and the most common use you'll see for variables in this algebra class, is it represents an unknown. So for example, you may be told that 3 times x, and x is a variable in this case. It's a little letter. We don't know what it is, so we're going to put in an x, minus 1 equals 5x plus 7. So that's an example of, we don't know what that x equals. We just know it represents some number, but we do know that when you take 3 times that number and subtract 1, you're going to get the same result as when you take 5 times that number and add 7. So, finding that number and to make the equation true is what we do when we solve an equation. And that's a big part of math. We're going to start solving equations in chapter 3, and I'm going to put a little arrow saying, and you're going to be doing that for a lot of different types of equations. Okay, another use of a variable is to express any one of many numbers. In other words, you want to show a general principle and you let a variable stand for lots of things. And an example of that would be 2 times a, oops, I don't mean that, 0 times a equals 0. And this is a general principle. What this is saying is, for any number a, if you take it and multiply it times 0, it's 0. So this variable here, a, stands for lots of different numbers. Okay, I will see you in the next video, 1.1b.